Hi, everybody. This is Drew Tomlin from the Association for Middle Level Education, and you are joining us on another exciting Google Hangout with Amber Chandler. Amber Chandler is not only a wonderful author of this article that you're checking out here at AMLE Magazine, but she's also an ELA teacher at Frontier Middle School in Hamburg, New York. And we always like talking to Amber about her articles and everything that she's got on her mind. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about 3 tips for teaching speaking and listening skills. So thank you so much, Amber, for taking the time today.
Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. So of course, we're always curious about why young adolescents. So why is it especially important to teach young adolescents speaking and listening skills? Why this age? Why now? Why?
Well, it's interesting. I don't think I really thought of this so much until I had my own children, and then realized how much I needed to overtly teach them to make sure that they were doing the right things and manners and looking people in the eye, making sure, how they communicate expresses quite a bit. And so once I started noticing with my own children, I think I realized that, the kids in the middle school needed that help too.
Exactly. And having my own 6th grade kiddo at home too, I can definitely agree with you on that one. It's sometimes having your own kids at the home front really makes things dawn on you in a different way. So, in your article, you've given us clearly from what the title says, you've given us 3 great strategies to teach these skills. Of those 3, and I know it's hard to pick one, but what's one piece of advice you'd give a teacher who's struggling to teach these skills?
I think to start small might be the best idea. And that was more my first tip of just being overt about it. And there's little ways you can incorporate speaking into your normal class routine. And sometimes it feels a little silly because it's not exactly how I think most classrooms run. But if you can have kids do speaking tasks, I just started talking to my students when they're answering questions, we're standing up. So to stand up and say your answer. And it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it gets them a little more confidence. It teaches them about projecting their voice, all of those types of things.
Right, and I love the narrative that you share about the student who was asking for a pen, and you took just that little moment, so it doesn't have to be necessarily a large, lesson plan or a unit or something like that. It's just taking those little moments, those learning, those teachable moments, like they always say.
Absolutely. I think middle school too, and it's funny, I don't know a better word. Sometimes students appear sort of surly. they kind of just have that, I think they just don't know how to communicate with adults necessarily. And I kept finding that I thought they're being rude, but it wasn't rude. It was really, they didn't know how to approach that problem. They didn't know what to do in that basic situation.
Exactly right. It's a good way to put it. So in terms of academic achievement, to play devil's advocate, some might argue that teaching speaking and listening skills, it's a nice way. It's a nice thing to help with social graces and decorum and things like that, but it isn't essential for academic achievement. So what would you say to that perspective, and how does teaching speaking and listening skills help academically?
I kind of have a couple of answers. One is I think that the technology has changed so much that we would be completely remiss if we didn't address that. And I'll give you an example. Last year, I had a girl in my 8th grade class who came up to me, just said, would it be okay if I talked my paragraph and told it to Siri, and Siri will put it into notes, and then I'll read it and double check it.
Wow.
So ultimately, she wanted to do this. That was how she thought of writing this paragraph. And my brain doesn't go that way, but hers did. And I said, sure. I mean, it makes sense. She's dictating it. It's her words. Siri's writing it down. She still has to go back and edit and correct and make sure it, makes sense. But for her to get her ideas down that way, I thought was really cool. So that's the first part, is I think there's the technology aspect. The second part is the way the world works right now. People are hired via Skype by having PowerPoints that they're playing along to, or a Prezi. That's going to be really very important, I think, in the future, not just, an audience of one handing in a paper.
Yeah, exactly right. You broke up a little bit there, but I think I got it. That yeah, I mean that technology piece is so essential. I mean this Google Hangout itself is a good example of how people communicate now in a different way that completely relies upon speaking and listening and viewing as well. So you know, another stakeholder that's involved in the recipe is on the home front. So you know, a lot of speaking and listening skills are modeled there, or taught there, or reinforced there. So how do you involve and inform parents and families as well about the importance of speaking and listening skills?
And you touched on an interesting point there, because I think the seed of my interest in speaking and listening actually came from a long time ago being a Ruby Payne trainer, frameworks out of poverty. And one of the things she talks about is that different houses, be it any socioeconomic level, have different ways of communicating, and schools operate on an extremely middle class system of how we expect students to handle behaviors. And I will come right out sometimes and tell my students, the thing you're supposed to be doing right now is, and say those things, because I think sometimes they don't know. So when I studied the Ruby Payne things, one of the things she talked about is this, you have to make that connection that there's different valuable means of communication, but this is school talk. Or, you know, this is, you know, I talked about it, this isn't texting, this is formal. I don't think there's anything wrong with switching, talking about switching registers. I do an activity where they break down a Shakespeare couple lines, and they have to put it into an informal register like they would speak to their friends.
Right. Right. So yeah, it's always a delicate dance to both value the cultural or heritage language that a student may have that they have learned at home, while also providing them, you know, that cultural currency, the language that's going to, you know, pay dividends in the future. That's a interesting thing to think about. So thank you for helping us think more about it. And you mentioned sowing seeds in your last answer. So of course this takes us to our next food metaphor.
Uh-oh.
All right. So I know you enjoy these food metaphor questions.
I'm an English teacher. I should enjoy them, but they scare me.
All right. So here we go. So if speaking and listening skills were a food for middle level education, what kind of food would they be, and why, Amber?
I think I might think of how you have to have your pyramid of your, you know, your basics. I think these are the basics. I think this might be your meat and potatoes. You know, and other times I talk about your specialties. I think this is very, very key, but also very fundamental and basic. They're the core ingredients, I would say, in the recipe.
Right. Okay, cool. So, and unfortunately, they're often thought of as, you know, things that we sometimes get to, or after we're done with reading and writing, then we'll get to speaking and listening. But I think your perspective on that it's the meat and potatoes, it's that foundational piece. Yeah, that's great. And they obviously complement all the other strands of literacy as well. So bravo. Good job, Amber. I mean, I'm not surprised. You know, I mean, you're an expert.
Oh.
You know.
Well, I don't know if I'm.
Oh, come on. Pish posh. You're being well, gosh, thank you so much, Amber, for taking a little bit out of your time after a long school day, I'm sure, to talk a little bit more about this article and share your expertise with us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Awesome. And of course, thank you, AMLE Magazine readers, for checking out this article and checking out the Google Hangout today with Amber Chandler. So thank you so much. Here at AMLE, we help you reach every student, grow professionally, and create great schools. Thanks again. Bye.